I am standing against a dishonest narrative that surgically selects black pain as the only legitimate historical suffering, while deliberately ignoring the centuries of trauma, war, colonization, and dehumanization that shaped every race and civilization on Earth. No race has a monopoly on pain. The idea that only black people were dehumanized is historically false and morally manipulative. The Huns ravaged Europe in the 4th and 5th centuries, leaving towns burned, women violated, and kingdoms destroyed. Mongol invasions wiped out entire populations, up to 40 million people, across the Middle East, Russia, and Eastern Europe. Vikings pillaged Christian villages, sold white slaves in North Africa, and terrorized coastal Europe for centuries. Irish people were colonized, starved in famines, and reduced to subhuman status by the British. Jews were exterminated in gas chambers in the 20th century after 2,000 years of persecution. Even Africans were not just victims. Some tribes sold others into slavery long before the first European ever arrived. So yes, black suffering is real, but it is not exclusive. The true human story. Everyone has bled. To be human is to suffer. To grow is to rise above it, not wallow in it forever. Europe was once a brutal battlefield, yet today those nations are prosperous, stable, and functional. Why? Because they moved from victimhood to vision, from mourning to building. The danger of black. Exceptionalism. When you elevate black suffering as uniquely sacred, you paralyze future generations in inherited pain, block meaningful comparisons and universal lessons, weaponize guilt instead of building solutions, demand pity, not partnership. Real dignity is in rising, not weeping. Forever you are not less human because your ancestors were dehumanized, but you become less powerful when you cling to that dehumanization as identity. We are not the only people who suffered, but we might be the last people still using that suffering to justify failure.
What you are about to witness is not just a report. It's a bombshell. It is the testimony of someone who lived through two South Africas, one built under the weight of apartheid and one collapsing under the banner of freedom. This is not romanticism. This is reality. I lived in a time when taps gushed with clean water in black villages, community clinics were functional and reliable, schools ran on discipline, not dysfunction, teachers were respected like elders, and they earned it. They stayed behind after the bell rang, helping us form study groups, pushing us to rise, not for money, not for clout, but because they believed in us. There were jobs, there was order, there was pride in doing things right. We were poor, yes, but we were not broken. Today, that world is gone, replaced by slogans, looted budgets, dry taps, jobless graduates, and the slow death of dignity. This report will challenge myths, it will expose a betrayal, and it will force this country to face a question it fears. What if apartheid, for all its evil, ran this country better than the ANC does today?
Yes, I lived it. Apartheid was better. At least the taps worked before the ANC stole the pipes. I don't need to read a textbook or ask a historian. I lived it. In the 1980s, I lived in a black village, deep in what they called the homelands. Yet we had working taps. Not dreams of water, not water tankers, real running, gushing taps at every corner. The water was clean. The system was functional. And you could trust that if something broke, someone would fix it, not steal the repair budget. That was my experience under apartheid. Now fast forward to 2025. We are ruled by liberators, but we are left with rotting pipes, dry taps, and cholera outbreaks. So let me say what many fear to say. Yes, in terms of basic service delivery, apartheid was better. Not because it was morally right, not because it was racially just, but because unlike the ANC, it could actually build and maintain a functioning country. Brain when the lie cracks. For 30 years, We've been told to shut up and be grateful, to never compare, to never ask hard questions, to never say, hey, at least the taps used to work. But why not? Because the truth is dangerous? No, the lie is dangerous. The lie that democracy automatically brings dignity. The lie that black-led governance equals progress. The lie that remembering what worked under apartheid is the same as endorsing racism. Building construction apartheid was not good, but it delivered. Apartheid was a good system, but the government functioned. Roads were built to last 40 years, and many are still holding. Clinics were stocked, nurses were trained. Tap water reached villages. Infrastructure was maintained with military precision. Theft from the state, unthinkable. Compare that to now, where ANC-run municipalities don't even have money for toilet paper in clinics. So no, I don't miss apartheid's ideology. But I do miss its efficiency, its discipline, its ability to get the job done, without cadres, without kickbacks, without ghost employees. Coffin, the ANC killed the dream, and the pipes. Democracy was not supposed to rot. But under ANC rule, it has. They didn't build on what was there, they devoured it. They didn't expand the water system, they privatized it through tankers. They didn't root out corruption, they formalized it. What is democracy worth when the people drink sewage and are told to smile? Say it loud. If we want to fix this country, we must first break the spell. Stop pretending everything before 1994 was hell and everything after is heaven. Stop silencing people who speak from lived experience. I will not be ashamed to say it. Apartheid was better than the ANC in service delivery, in infrastructure, in discipline. Not because it was moral, but because it worked. And if that makes me a heretic in this new religion of the struggle, then so be it. Because my people need water, not slogans. We need working taps, not monuments. We need accountability, not struggle songs. Let me review what I have just said, not only for the sake of emphasis, but also that this truth filter through all the layers of propaganda in your minds and make you sane. It is not good for your mind to be full of so many lies. All these lies that have been hammered in your mind make you to be mentally ill. So let me repeat what I have said in order to help you. Not all aspects of apartheid governance were dysfunctional. To pretend they were is to bury lessons in state building, service delivery, and discipline. We don't defend apartheid by telling the truth about what worked. We defend the future by refusing to let propaganda blind us to reality. I don't speak from ideology. I speak from memory. In the 1980s, I lived in a rural village, not in a fancy suburb, not in some elite enclave, but a black village under the old regime. And do you know what we had? Tups. Flowing taps. Not just one communal pipe at the chief's kraal. We had gushing, clean water at every corner. Constant, cold, pressurized. It was normal. It was ours. We didn't need a water tanker or a prayer for rain. So when people today tell me that everything before 1994 was evil and nothing worked, I shake my head. Because I was there. I lived it. I drank the water. Many rural black villages had working tap water during the 1970s and 1980s. Basic infrastructure, roads, clinics, schools, and water systems did exist in for many. In fact, some of the infrastructure installed under apartheid still functions better than post-1994 ANC replacements. I lived this reality. It cannot be erased by political slogans or ideological censorship.
The danger of blanket condemnation. 1. It shuts down honest debate. Not all aspects of apartheid governance were dysfunctional. To pretend they were is to bury lessons in state building, service delivery, and discipline. 2. It fuels ANC propaganda. By pretending nothing worked before 1994, they justify their failures and hide behind the legacy of apartheid forever. 3. It insults lived black experiences. Many black South Africans remember cleaner streets, working taps, disciplined municipalities, and real consequences for theft, even under a racist system. Apartheid was a system built on a terrible idea. But the machinery of the state functioned. When roads were built, they lasted. When hospitals were erected, they didn't collapse after a decade. When taps were installed, water flowed. Why? Because there was discipline in delivery, a strict chain of command, and consequences for failure, even if those systems served the races unequally. Today, we have equality on paper and collapse in reality. The ANC didn't just fail, it betrayed. Fast forward to freedom. What do we have? Towns without water. Municipalities with our zero in the maintenance budget. Rusted pipes, dried boreholes, sewage spilling into rivers. Water tankers looting municipal budgets through politically connected middlemen. And in some places, cholera. In the 21st century, what happened? The ANC happened. The same party that promised to deliver for the people has now delivered collapse. They didn't extend the legacy of infrastructure, they cannibalized it. They turned working municipalities into feeding troughs. They turned engineers into cadres. They turned working taps into dry, rusted symbols of stolen dreams. Why soccer thrived under apartheid. 1. Infrastructure and institutional discipline. Stadiums like Orlando Stadium, FNB, and Ellis Park were developed or modernized under strict construction, safety, and scheduling standards. Leagues ran like clockwork. Fixtures, match officials, travel, and training followed a near-military precision. Even without racial inclusion at all levels, the structure was stable. 2. Black working-class pride and escape. Soccer was one of the few spaces where Black South Africans could shine publicly, competitively, and with dignity. Clubs like Kaizer Chiefs, Orlando Pirates, and Moroka Swallows became not just sports brands, but pillars of Black excellence, self-reliance, and social pride. Soccer unified townships. It was both sport and silent rebellion. 3. No room for looting. Apartheid-era sports bodies, though ideologically compromised, still demanded clean audits, well-run events, and proper accountability. You didn't get tenders for uniforms, fake development leagues, or ghost stadiums. That would have been immediately exposed or punished. 4. Corporate sponsorship was based on results, not race. Top clubs earned deals from banks, brewers, and corporations based on performance, professionalism, and fan loyalty, not political connections. Contrast that with today's ANC-linked sports structures, where development is looted and many local tournaments never happen despite massive budgets. Chartacreasing what happened after 1994? Cadre deployment infected sports bodies. Political interference eroded independence and meritocracy. Development funds were often misused. Stadium tenders for the 2010 World Cup became vehicles for massive corruption, not grassroots legacy. Brain the bitter irony. Apartheid's system gave us order, discipline, functionality. It gave us a cruel state, yes, but also a functioning one. The ANC promised freedom and instead delivered chaos.